And we're live. Welcome back to our Monday night Epic Jedi Project book discussions. This is our third season, and this time around we are reading and discussing Finding Latinx by Paola Ramos. Here's the book. It's a great read. We're only on chapter 2, so you can still, join us. Go get the book. Join the conversation. Come on live with us, or just follow us on our live stream and have conversation there. We get to read all your comments as they come in. So that's always fun. Today we do have a new guest, but I'm going to bring Richard McCrow on, who has been joining me since the very beginning. Hello, welcome back.
Everybody, got my book.
And last week we had technical difficulties across the board. I don't know if that's going to happen again. It's like clear skies. It's spring. It's warm. I don't know why I was having problems. I don't know if how it came across, but
Broadcasting live from Early Mark, California.
Dude, tell them where we live. Great. Now they're going to find us.
That's right. I have to sign autographs.
Okay, and then I want to thank Richard for asking our special guest to come on today. Richard, do you want to do a quick intro for her when I bring her on?
I will, but I swear my intro will not do her justice, but you can bring her on.
Well, she can introduce herself also. I just want to make sure that we get the connection. So welcome, Edith Mata. Yay.
Edith Mata.
Thank you for joining us.
The Student Government Association at Bakersfield College, a wonderful individual, has been very active this semester and done a lot of things to help students and the community. And I'm just proud that she's with us here today. Hi, Edith.
Hi, Edith Mata, Richard, and Letty. Thank you so much for inviting me and having me here. I'm very excited.
Absolutely. Why don't you
Thank you so much for joining us.
And introduce yourself, because I know you've done a lot more than just Bakersfield College.
Thank you, Edith Mata. Yeah, well, I am Edith Mata. I resided in Mexico for 8 years, my childhood, then arrived here to the United States and resided in Bakersfield since then. I am a mother to a 6-year-old son. I am very involved in my community. I aspire to become an attorney and defend human rights. One of my passions is social justice and also advocating for undocumented people. I've worked around immigration since 2018 and just being at the forefront of people in detention centers and supporting them in whatever way I possibly can, and just exercising their rights and demanding a immigration reform that serves and ultimately helps and supports everyone. So that's just a little bit of my background. And at the moment, I am holding office as a SGA President, and it's been a very empowering journey. And I'm just happy to be a public servant. That concludes my introduction. Thank you. Back to you.
Awesome. No, thank you for that. We already have a comment, and it's actually for you. Welcome, beautiful spirit. Thank you, Sally. Follows our conversation.
Thank you, Sally.
Welcoming to the conversation. So thank you for that. I want to put up here, kind of what we're going to be talking about, and then we can kind of share why we think that it's okay for us to have this conversation. Are we equipped to have this conversation? Chapter 2 is called Shining Light, and it is mostly about detention centers, undocumented trans women being detained, leaving their home countries, making their way through to the United States, what their experiences have been. And the chapter is, to me, I think it's a little bit shorter than some of the other ones, and but I feel like there's so much turmoil in terms of like the emotion in the lives that these women have to live just to survive. And then this is like without even knowing if they're going to make it, across the border, right? So some of the interviews um, that took place were after they had already been released from detention centers, for example. So Edith had shared a little while ago, some of the work that she did here locally, letter writing campaigns, and being involved and understanding that. I mean, she said, you want to work with the legal issues surrounding immigration and the undocumented, and then we're talking about a very specific, very vulnerable group of people. So there's like all these layers of identity, and then all of these layers of what's the word I'm looking for? Like issues or problems that, the obstacles maybe that they have to deal with, along all that whole path. So this chapter takes us from California and the Central Valley into across Arizona and into New Mexico. So we're going from the west into the southwest. And I wanted to ask again, like I did last week, who do we think we are? Who do we think we are? Who are we to discuss this? Do you have a sense of, commitment, confidence in, tackling Latinx identity issues and trans women identity issues? Either of you can take this.
I can go ahead and start. Well, I believe that I do because I've worked with this group of people before and also learn myself to be open-minded about it and hear their stories and how is it that I can better support them, right? Better be an accomplice and also help them move forward in their journey to freedom, to embrace their identity. Because this is
Mm,
something that I underwent. Um, as you may know, all the Americas, all the continents are referred as Hispanic.
right.
But it's like in reality, my culture is very rich. Um, so I had to learn like, what am I? Latina, Hispanic, Latinx, Indigenous, Native American. So I underwent that, and it was I came down to the conclusion that I am a Chicana. It's spelled with an X because I claim and identify with my indigenous roots. So it was very liberating for me, just to know who I am, because it opened up like so many portals to just really liberate myself and decolonize myself from 500 years of colonization, of programming, of gentrification, genocide, and everything that I've suffered and that it's been recorded in my DNA. But to be able to just come back to my roots and ground myself, and I refer to myself as a tree because I'm grounded, I'm tall, and I'm proud. So yeah, so I think it was so I think that's what gives me credibility to just dive into this topic. Thank you.
That's no, I love that. I love that because we have been having these conversations so much over the last few years, right? About decolonization and what does that mean, and some people don't want to talk about it because it's kind of like when you bring up slavery and the transatlantic slave trade, and people are like, seriously, you're still talking about that? And it's like, yes, because you know we're still having these conversations because people are still wanting to label incorrectly. They think they know. They want to erase history. They don't want to be uncomfortable, and I'm just saying they like a broad day. Um, and so yeah, we have to keep having the conversation, and you have to keep saying this is what I'm identifying with, and that has been a process for you. And the same thing for me. I talked about this last week. This idea that for me, that I came to the conclusion that I like Latina. I don't know why.
Mhm.
That's what I identified with when I started really looking at like, what does Hispanic really mean? Mexican American. I was born here. My dad's from Texas. My mom's from Mexico. What does that mean for me? And then really thinking about how I grew up, it was sort of like that cusp of making sure you're speaking Spanish at home, but making sure you're only speaking English outside the home. So, I mean, that if people don't understand what it's like to have to like live in that immigrant world, and then also like be the best that you can possibly be, and then not for nothing, but like I said last week, when you have lighter skin and you're white passing, there are certain expectations, but then when you get home, it's like having nicknames that make you feel like you're other inside your own house. It's like all of these things. And imagine telling my parents anything about decolonization. It makes me
I
laugh.
know.
But if I
I
try to have
like
that
to add
conversation,
something.
they're like, "What are you even talking about? Like, we live in California. Get over yourself." So it's
Yeah, I
happening in our own home. Go
if
ahead.
I may add something, throughout my journey, ways of because what I realize is that the systems change, but it's still there's
Mhm,
still a lot of decolonizing to do. But the systems have changed, right? They evolve just like we do. And I think one thing that I still see slavery as is like the holidays, celebrating and polluting nature, Mother Earth with Christmas and just buying a bunch of gifts, unnecessary gifts, or feeling people feeling entitled to, oh, you should have got me something, things like that. So for me, I opt out from celebrations as I became more like, you know, I understood who I am and where I come from. And for my family, it was very hard. They were like, "What is wrong
mhm,
with you? Like, are you crazy? You're not coming to Thanksgiving dinner? You're not celebrating Christmas anymore?" I'm like, "No, I'm making my own holidays. I'm gonna go plant a tree in April, go to sequoias and make my own holidays." And it's worked out so perfectly. Just this weekend, I went out to it was Mexican New Year. It's our new year for yeah, for the our tribe, our indigenous tribes. And it was very liberating to just because they're prayers, that's how we pray, through dances. And so
mhm,
yeah, just coming back to my core of my indigenous, it has really healed me into like, as we face all these kinds of adversity and racism and a lot of hate and division upon like just a different set of events that have happened in 2 years. And just the culture has really grounded me in you know self-love and also love for others, and to have an open
mhm.
mind to everyone's different uniqueness and identities. But thank you, I just wanted to share that with you.
No, that's good. The open-mindedness, especially because like you're saying about like making your own traditions and tapping into a different part of who you are as a person. Because when we talk about colonization, and then because I've had some of these conversations with my mom, especially because she's like devout Catholic. And I want to like make the argument like, well, what was happening before they invaded? What was happening before that? Like, are you telling me like life didn't exist, or your beliefs, whatever our ancestors, like they didn't have anything, like they were just like nothing? If there was nothing there, and then the Catholics showed up and said, this is how you do life, and we just all said yes, and now forever and always that's the way it is, and not wanting to think about that. So that's accepted, so why not accept, as things are changing, as people are changing, as our, the like you're saying, the systems, the way that they evolve, when they evolve, they're still not necessarily for everybody, right? So we have to kind of make our own way. So that definitely answers the question. Richard, I don't know if you wanted to jump in on the who are we to discuss this. I feel like
I just really quick because how could I even compare to what both of you had just said, especially Edith. I will say that when Edith talked about a journey, it did pop into my head that I'm taking a journey, and the difference between my journey is, a lot of my privilege allows me to just lay down and not pay attention, and so I've got to keep I've got to keep learning. I've got to keep listening to what people have to say and the differences in everybody, because there's so much to cherish. And from a selfish standpoint, it's going to make me a better person. But from a community standpoint, it makes me a better part of the community, and I get to work hard. And I am ignorant when it comes to a lot of this stuff, and realize it. And so I get to learn. And so that's why I get to talk about it.
And Sally actually also commented something similar about wanting to understand and to learn. So thank you, Sally. I think sometimes we forget that is part, that can be part of how you contribute. And then we also talk about this, like, well, then what happens next? Like, what do you do next once you actually do start to understand? Because it's, to me, I feel like, especially in these conversations, the understanding happens pretty quickly. Like, oh, you know what? Yeah, that makes sense. But then do you leave this conversation and not think about it again for like a month? You have that privilege to just like walk away and not think about it? Or are you constantly thinking about it? And then what are you doing in your everyday life, right? Like that, are you putting your words into action, that kind of thing. So this is why we have to keep having these conversations, and why I love just continuing the Monday night conversations based in these books, but also our personal experiences of the guests that we have on. Okay, I'm going to jump into the chapter. I don't know how deep we're going to go into this, but maybe I should show the video first. So we do have Paola Ramos is an investigative journalist with Vice. And so a couple of years ago, maybe 3 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, there were some stories that she put together that ended up being this book, Finding Latinx. So there is a video, and Richard, thank you for finding it and sharing it. And I'm going to do my best to figure out how to do this, because I always forget to add the sound. But I wanted to play the first few minutes of this to have everyone kind of get an idea of where we're coming from. And please bear with me because I have to share the tab. I know we've been doing this for 2 years. It's still not ingrained in my brain. Okay. Share. Okay, here's the article. You guys can see that, right? Okay. So the article, Meet the Trans Migrants Fighting for Their Sisters in Detention. And so there was this Latinx series, I think, that Vice had put together, and Paola Ramos was the investigator, the journalist that went out into to have these conversations.
Did your identities have anything to do with your journey to the United States?
Sí, claro. Yo creo que y la discriminación y todo eso, y la violencia, crímenes de odio que hay en nuestro país, por todo esto también es que salimos huyendo prácticamente a la comunidad LGBT, de sufrir la discriminación, violencia en nuestro país, y venir a volver a lo mismo.
This is a story of what it's like to be a trans Latinx migrant in the United States today. It's a journey of fleeing violence, seeking refuge in a country that can be welcome.
Y en cuanto empiezas ese lugar, empiezan los matados psicológicos, verbales, emocionales, de toda clase de abusos que te puedas imaginar. Y por parte de oficiales y por parte de niños.
No es tan fácil venir de nuestros países. Creo que todos hemos pasado todo eso aguantamos para sobrevivir y por querer tener una vida mejor.
We're gonna keep fighting. We're gonna keep transmigrating. We're gonna keep transgressing borders, and we're not gonna stop.
Okay, just wanted to show that intro. One of the trans woman that was in the car riding with her when they were going in Arizona past the Eloy Detention Center, that is Carolina Lopez, and that's the first person that we're going to talk about. So I wanted to show that clip because they showed her. She's got She's wearing a shirt with butterflies on it. In her apartment, there's butterflies everywhere because she really identifies with that word. Mariposas Sin Fronteras is the name of her group. Let's see, we've got some comments. Okay. So the first person, Carolina Lopez, Carolina with a K, she makes it a point to say, you know, that she wanted to really have a connection with her mom because her mom didn't accept her the way that she was, but she wanted it to be a K. So the connection was there, but she was her own person, right? So it's Carolina with a K, and that's how she introduces herself. I love that. But she talks about how she ended up in the detention center and being arrested for having an expired driver's license after migrating here when she was 13, or trying to make her way here when she was 13 years old. And I can't even imagine. My son is 16 and I'm like, you can barely like make it down the street. What? Like that, the idea that people have to do these courageous and outrageous things to survive, to be themselves. The courage just blows me away. So she ended up in the detention center, and I want to talk a little bit about what that's like. Edith, you had talked a little bit about your experiences in the local detention center, not in the detention center, but working with people in the detention center. Because when she was arrested, when she was taken, ICE took her to this detention center. She was put into an all-male unit. Okay, and so that the trauma associated with that alone, not just the idea that then she spends 3.5 years in a detention center because she's undocumented and got arrested for an expired driver's license. Okay, so but I wanted to give you an opportunity, Edith, to talk a little bit about your experience with the detention center here and the work that you were involved in.
Thank you. And you know, I have heard it, and it's, to me, it's just dehumanizing. It's very dehumanizing that they put this woman through that. I mean, I could go, you know, there's so many things that are wrong with it, but it's just very dehumanizing. I think as a whole, just the system is dehumanizing, because ultimately there shouldn't even be detention centers. They can fight their case from outside, especially if they're not high profile criminals. Like, she's not a high profile criminal. She should have never even been in this detention center, especially if put with, you know, she doesn't identify as that, as a male. So I think it's very dehumanizing, and like you said, traumatic. That you know, I looked at her interview, and she said that she goes back and has visits with other fellows like her, or you know, this and you know, they asked her why, and because, you know, she said that because just being there for them, it gives them hope that they're gonna come out, that they're gonna make it, that they're gonna get out, that they're not gonna die in there or be killed, because that's what happens. You know, people like them, they experience a lot of hate crimes. And yeah, so I think, to me, it just resonated, the letter writing, and also just being there for them, whatever, you know, however you can, because, you know, for me, it was protesting every Thursday from 7 to 8 p.m. when they had yard, when they would go outside and they could hear us, because they were it was during April, and when COVID broke out in 2020, and they were in a hunger strike for like 4 months, the women's, and so were the males. And you know, just basically just asking for basic human rights, like, you know, accessibility to healthy, to just food without maggots, accessibility to a shower, to medicine, to shampoo, to lotion, to um you know, just basic things, basic needs. uh Carolina, one of the ladies that was in there, and I had the opportunity to interview, because at that time I was writing for South Central News, and I noticed that nobody was writing about this at all. So I'm like, I am going to write about this. So that was like, I wrote a couple articles, definitely during the hunger strikes. And I got to interview Carolina, and she shared with me how they would treat them like very differently. Sometimes they wouldn't even give them their, you know, like their stuff to take a shower, like shampoo, or, you know, just hygiene things. Um, Another thing that she shared with me was the fact that when they would go in there to take a shower, the water was burning. Like, she said that they literally had to stick their head in there and come out. And then when they would come outside to their dorms, um it was super cold, like ice cold. Like, she said that she would work there and she would never sweat. That's how cold it was. So, just like just how everything is in there is very dehumanizing. And I think it makes it even worse when they don't have a space for you to just be. But I really admire Carolina with the K, her courage to go back and, just remember, like, face those things again, but be a support for them, as, once upon a time somebody was there for her. And something that resonated with me, because I got to interview another girl. They were released from ICE detention center here in Bakersfield. It's called Mesa Verde, ICE detention center. And she said that, the day that she was released, we went to go meet them outside of immigration's custom enforcement building that they have on Truxton. And, my son and I, we went, we took them some snacks, and my son gave flowers to every lady. And one of them shared with me that us being out there, like, her hearing us, gave her, like, the strength to continue with fighting for her freedom, and continue her her not eating, what am I called? Yeah, like,
Hunger strike?
her protest, her hunger strike. Yes, to continue her hunger strike, because she wouldn't wanted to give up. She wanted to give up many times, but she said that being there for her it really helped her. Like, it gave her hope that she was gonna get out, and that there was somebody out there rooting for her and that wanted her out. So, if to me, it was very rewarding, because I did have to, it was very tiresome, but I knew that it was very important, and to just be there for them, especially as a person that has family that's undocumented. I would want somebody to be there for my family or myself, but, to me, that they're family. So it was just nice. And I think, just hearing from Carolina, yeah, Carolina, where she shared how, writing a letter could create that big of a difference. And, she wasn't the only one. There was this other elder lady that, she was like 80, but they were really, like, she was sick and they were not giving her medicines and stuff. So they actually had to amputate her foot while she was in Mesa Verde. Yeah. So when she came out, I also got to see her. And, my son had wrote her a letter. Um, I mean, he was only 3 at that time, so he didn't really know how to write, but he put, like, a bunch of stickers. He decorated it with a bunch of stickers. And she remembered him. She's like, "Oh my God, are you the one with the little boy?" And, Ramon. And I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Oh, thank you." She was just, like, saying how that made her feel human, you know? So I think it was just powerful to be there for them. Maybe you at that level, like, that's what I was able to offer. So yeah, just that's what I have to say.
That's perfect. That's perfect. The idea that you're doing what you can, like, what is it that I'm able to offer, and the kind of difference that it can make. Carolina with the K, I mean, she talks about, in the book, they go into a little more detail about what it means to walk out of a place like that and then no one's there. Like, no one's there to greet you. You're kind of, like, put out into society on your own. And I mean, we know this about just, like, um, the prison system in general, but then this specifically, because there was already, like I said earlier, like, all these obstacles. There's already so much, the vulnerability of this particular group. um and, so she says, like you said, that letter writing, and then being able to have conversations, so that they know that when they walk out, that there might be somebody there waiting, and that gives them some hope. um Let me see. Okay, so the group, specifically for Carolina with a K, Mariposas Sin Fronteras is the group, that she was wearing the shirt. And Paola Ramos asked her, like, "Well, you keep coming back to have these visits." And I mean, we know the answer to that, right? It's like, we're trying to support each other. We want to, these are human beings. We have to have connections. Any little bit helps, whether I'm writing letters or I'm coming to visit, so that they know. And then the idea that, because she talked about, at the very least, one of the things that made the biggest impact was asking for pronouns, asking, what do you want to be called? You know, what's your name? Like, what is your name, the name you're giving yourself? Like you talk, Edith, about, I had my own transformation and I discovered something about myself, and I'm going to have you explain your flag here in a second. But like the identity, like, yeah, we're talking about Latinx and, you know, in this big group. But what does it mean to these different smaller communities that are being impacted? What does that identity do for them when someone is saying, I want to know your pronoun, tell me what you want to be called, what is the name you're choosing for yourself? So this is someone like you're saying, someone who is reaching out and doing whatever they can. This is what she can do. This is what she can do now that she's been released. Richard, did you want to add something? I thought you were leaning in.
Oh, yeah, I'm here. No, I was just really listening, and the power of the written word, whether it's coming from a 3-year-old boy and or anybody else, and for those that are listening today, I think, you know, consider, you know, care packages and letters and things like that. And if you need any assistance in tracking down what the addresses are, those types of things, we'd be more than happy to do that, because it's hard. And I think Edith brings a significant awareness to what the truth is in the detention facilities.
You are a gift, and you're raising a wonderful child. Edith, you're teaching by example. I mean, there's a response.
You know, I'd like to add
right?
that he's been there to the protest. You know, he's been there to welcome folks back from these detention centers. I think one thing that really impacted me was the fact that they were trying to get a hold of their boundaries, because one of them had been incarcerated for like 3 years. So for her, it was so weird to be outdoors, you know, to be free. And
Yeah.
another one, they were dealing with like mental problems, like mental health. You know, she was kind of like, she wasn't there, you know, she wanted to, you know, she wasn't okay, and we knew that, and that was okay. But I think sometimes some of the folks, the way they try to help them is not the best. So I think, you know, they were trying to call the police, like, to help them, like, get her situated. But I'm like, how are you gonna call the police when they're the ones like prosecuting them? So to me, that spoke to me
Right.
volumes of what to do and what not to do, you know, because I'm like, what we needed to do was call somebody with like some, like, you know, help her with her health, her mental health, and just get her settled down so that she can move on with her life and her proceedings. Because as soon as they got out of there, they were supposed to leave, because they can get arrested again and they'll go back, you know. So it's yeah, it was just interesting to witness it, and also to see, you know, how do we address this, and how do we actually do what's right for them, and not what we think it's right, but what it's right for them, and what is it that they need to be okay. So yeah,
Yeah,
thank you.
that's a great point. We have, let me see, another comment here. It's a little bit longer. Inhumane treatment, yes. I know there's a bigger conversation to be had for, you know, in terms of just incarcerated population, and then, you know, when they're released. And I know Bakersfield College is trying to, you guys have programs also for, you know, scholars and getting people reentry and all that kind of stuff. So I think that maybe there's more attention being paid to that. But one thing that actually Sally said that she's in, so maybe we can start some kind of campaign, Edith, to get some support for the folks.
There's already
here
campaigns. But I think it's just to get involved at whatever level you can, because I know it's hard work. Or, well, I don't want to call it work, but it is work, and commitment and time consuming. But I think when you see it as just like, being human, this is dehumanizing. And I mean, I wouldn't want my mom there, or my sister.
Right.
So that's when, you actually like take into conscious what is really wrong and what is right. And I think, definitely like you can write letters to your, for example, like the supervisors here, because they're ultimately allocating money for this detention center. Write to people in power, like, hey, we don't want this. This is not where we want our tax money to go to. So I think that's definitely like actually trying to change the politics, because for me, protesting and stuff, I learned a lot, but for me now is definitely changing policy, because that's what's going to change the game. And that's really what's gonna it's also a lot of work. You have to write, you have to make it. Yeah, it's tough, but I think definitely just addressing the laws. What are the laws? Let's change the laws, because this make it more just. So I think for me, that's what I have learned through this journey of advocating for undocumented people, what works and what doesn't, and to just strategize and support. Like there's all kinds of campaigns, but I think is definitely where you feel your heart belongs, and like basically it's aligned with your core values, and what is it that you want to do for the community, and ultimately seek out a group that's doing the things that you support and that you think are or that are right for this community.
Also locally, right? Because I mean, we're talking because the three of us happen to be like in the same region. Um, People can start looking in their areas, like who their representatives are, but also are there detention centers near you? What is happening with undocumented population in your region? Um, we hear it and see it a lot. It's like on our news a lot because we're in the Central Valley, and it just happens to be one of the places where we hear a lot about it. So another recommendation, like you're saying, is when you're doing outreach or when you're looking for where to go to spend your time and energy, you can definitely just look locally and do what you can in your region. That will make a difference. There's another comment. Okay. So we're going to talk a little bit about two types of people, but in the interest of like the decolonization conversation and identity that we were hitting on before we talked about Mesa Verde. Edith, I want you to explain your flag, please, because we're talking about identity, and I love this conversation. So, do you mind sharing, please, what that is?
Yes, I can. And I am sorry that my background is not aligned very perfectly. I was trying to fix it, but it didn't work out at the end. Well, basically, that is it's our Mexica flag. It's the very first flag of our tribe, my tribe, and it's just Mexico, including parts of what is known today as the United States, which was Aztlan. Um, and the reason why I use it, because a lot of people have the misconception that the eagle was carrying a snake, but it's not true. It's not a snake. It's actually water and fire. And what this flag represents is sovereignty. Oh my God, did I say it right? Somebody
Sovereignty,
help.
yeah.
Sovereignty. Sorry, I have issues with that word, but that's what it represents. As something that I know you brought up earlier was the fact that, like when you said before conquest, did we have like a civilization where we, what were we? And yes, we did. We were, yeah, we had a full blown, well established civilization. Everybody was very good at what they did. I think, you know, we were, for example, I am Mexica and I'm also Maya. And both of my, I've looked at both of the ancient civilizations, and wow, they blow my mind just at how accurate they were. we had the best the best doctors, the best architecture, the best, everybody was very good at what they did. But there goes more into detail that goes with that. But they could there was a lot of things that were also burned because of colonization and how they wanted to just take away our knowledge and erase it from us. I think one of those what comes into play is even now today how they started that culture of abducting us from our families. What is this school called? As you may know, there's been these schools here where they would, I can't think of the name right now, but they would,
The Native American schools here and in Canada.
yes, but they
Like
have
the
a
board
name. What are they
school?
called? I can think of the name right now. But yeah, basically, that's how I see ICE to this day, because kids are dying in those concentration camps because that's what they
Right.
are. And so they're trying to just, well, they're not, they've been doing that. Definitely trying to erase what we know of ourselves. But I think one thing that is key is that our DNA is still in our DNA, like our subconscious still calls on those things that sometimes we don't overlook, but then it's there because that's who we are. And we can always embrace and come back to it. But yeah, I think so that is basically my Mexica flag. And I use it because I'm decolonizing myself. I'm also learning my native language, and just being more in tune with myself and learning to love myself and not hate myself for, yeah, for all those struggles, because it's very easy to forget who you are. And like you could be depressed all the time and stuff like that. So it's important to find your light and to come back to your core and nurture it. So that is basically it on the Mexica flag.
Thank you for sharing that. I wanted to kind of remind people, or maybe if they've never heard, this phrase that a lot of people of color will use, and maybe you've seen it. The idea that I am my ancestors' wildest dreams, like that resonates with me. And I talked to my son about it. Who's like a little güerito with blue eyes, and he hardly speaks any Spanish. And I'm like, what have I done? But I'm like, you know what? No, he's gonna find himself. And he also, we had the conversation. We talked about, like, you are your ancestors' wildest dreams. Like, even just from like a couple of generations, like, think about what it means that you are here doing what you're doing. And then think about that connection to Mexico, and think about, as you're learning ancient civilizations, and understand that there are human beings on the globe, for a lot longer than a lot of people want to give everyone credit for. And like you're saying, like, the technology was there, the civilizations were there and existing. They were humans accomplishing amazing things, and the history was like erased, colonized. And I can, I know I'm saying all these things that I'm saying when I also have my Virgencita back here. Maybe I'm a hypocrite, whatever. But I love her.
No,
I
that's
love my
fine.
Spanish.
That's fine. It's still unseen, but it's
Right.
dressed up because they had to conquer us, and they had to make it like to the, because I had conflict with it too. Like, I'm like, because now I'm learning about the deities of like my indigenous, from my tribe, and like my indigenous, I guess you could call them gods, right? But then how does
Right.
Tonantzin play in, and like Mother Earth y la Virgen. And
Yeah.
so it was like it was undisguised, but at the same time it's the same. So I learned that it's fine, it's fine. But
So
ultimately,
yeah,
whatever
you
I
embrace
want to
it.
make, yeah, so that's fine.
Yeah. What's funny, because, and I'm just gonna share this because I share personal stuff all the time. I'll it makes me laugh. So on December 12th, which is like the day of the Virgin, or whatever in Catholicism, in Latin, los Latinos, I guess. I'm sending my mom like all this stuff, like the Tonantzin, like images that do not look like this Virgencita. And she's like, that is not, because she's so devoutly Catholic. And so that was, I mean, I had fun with it, but you know, because then like, how do you, so I also have my little muertos here. So like, how does that work if we're also celebrating Dia de los Muertos? I don't know. That's a whole nother conversation. Okay. But I like what you said about the, you know, the light, because of this next thing that I pulled from the book, or going back to the book, she talks about light, because there was a I want to say young man named Ricardo, who was in a religious rehab house, because they were in the Central Valley, and it was like dealing with meth, and so it was rehab, but he was also trans, and talking about how, like, you know, that's not him anymore, you know, because he had pictures of himself as a woman. And Paola was asking him, like, well, but what do you mean? Like, why can't you, like, you can get clean and go through this process, even if it's a religious rehab house, and still be yourself. And he was like, no, that part of me can't exist. Otherwise, I can't be successful in my rehab. So this was like the religion part of it. But then she says, as she's talking to him, and like she can see, like, in his eyes, you know, he's not being himself. And so she says the two types of people in the world she realizes: those who need light to build resilience, which might be him, like he may need light, and then those who can do so in utter darkness. And she was referring to Carolina with a K, because, you know, 3.5 years in detention, in all male unit, and like, where do you find the hope? Where does the light come from? And so she was contrasting those two people and what they need in their lives. You've got religion, this need for a light and not being able to find it. And then Carolina being in this detention center for 3.5 years and having to struggle and coming out with still some kind of hope, even though she was alone, and doing so in utter darkness. So I wanted to share that. It seems like I'm saying a lot of words right now. But you said light, and I was like, yes, I'm so glad I wrote this down, because this is what it is. This is it. Like, some people, I mean, I'm thinking like Holocaust. I'm thinking like Ukraine right now. I'm thinking like, in darkness, some people can still find hope, and then other people cannot thrive. Like you're talking about, you can't be depressed all the time, right? You mentioned earlier, you've got to find a light if that's what you need. Is this something in your work, either of you, at school, at the college level, when you're working with making decisions about the students? And this could be reaching, but I feel like there's a lot that has to go into the humanity of students and the decisions that you have to make to impact everyone positively. Do you think about these things? Like, are you thinking about light? I'm sorry, I'm losing my audio here. You understand what my question is? Because I'm sorry, I'm cutting out a little bit.
I can hear you perfectly fine still.
So do you find in
Yeah, I
your work,
understand.
SGA and student groups, that, like, are you pushing humanity? Like, do you feel like, yes, let's find where the light is and help people get to it? Like, does that resonate? I just love this quote.
Yeah, it definitely does. So on my experience as just leading, and yeah, there's times where I don't even know the answers, you know. I don't know the answers. And sometimes I feel very clouded. And I'm like, I don't know what is right and what is wrong anymore. So I go to the mountains and, you know, just ground myself again, and I seek answers. I talk to the students. I ask, you know, I go here and there, and, you know, just hear what the community needs. And, you know, you will find the light at the end of the tunnel. You know, sometimes it seems like there is no light, but you just got to keep trying. You try again. You get up, dust it off, try again. And I think so far for me, it's just trying every day. Sometimes you won't have it down, and sometimes you will still don't know if this is the right way. But as long as you continue to try and ultimately like hear whoever the group or whatever is it that you're supporting or doing or working towards, like as long as you do the homework to actually listen, to take into account everything that you need for it to be successful, then yeah, there is the light. And I think for me, something that like I've been experiencing, I think just like 2020, 2021, definitely after the death of George Floyd and Black Lives Matter movement, the pandemic, it seemed like there was no light at the end of the tunnel. I was very depressed, to be honest with you, because I would be at the front, I would write stories on this. So I would be present, at the protest and everything, and just witnessing the outrage acts of people like running over one of the girls. They plotted through us. Like I almost got hit. It was very traumatizing experiences for me, to the moment, like when I see a car coming, I go behind another car because it's just like I'm traumatized by that experience. But I had to learn. So for me to just like how do you, like release what I was feeling, I wrote about it. I wrote an article and I published it because that was me sending the light. I'm like, somebody's gonna hear it and they're gonna see it. And, ultimately for my child too, I'm like, I know that he's gonna grow up and he's gonna probably one day read these articles and know what was happening at this time and how far we've come. So for me, that was the light. So yeah, I
You're
think
the light. You're
Yeah,
the light.
I was gonna say.
but sometimes you have to be the light, even when it's really, really dark and even when you feel like there is no light, but you have to be the light. And yeah, so to me, that's just basically it because, I wasn't feeling okay. Like sometimes I don't even feel like, like I'm like, am I a good leader? But then sometimes when I interact with students and they give me props for representing them at the level that they deserve. So it gives me hope that I'm doing something right and that I'm like, okay, I'm
Mhm.
following the light. But yeah, it could get dark, but you just have to keep hope that you'll see those little there'll be light at the end of the tunnel. So just hang on there and just keep trying. That's what has worked for me. Back to
Awesome.
you,
This is
Lucky.
amazing coming from a student. Richard, I don't know if like in under 30 seconds, if you can explain what it's like being an administrator and knowing that there are students who are having these thoughts about the kind of work that needs to be done in a college setting and the kind of support that different vulnerable groups need, especially. What you want to respond?
Yeah, it really quick. It is that, when I first started paying attention, and then I thought I had to change people's minds. Like I gotta work against the people that have privilege, and I gotta work against them and try to change their minds. And then, it was people like Edith that said, "You're not going to change their minds. They're going to say what they're going to say. What can you do though outside that to work through that?" And so my light comes from people like Edith, and the hearing what they're saying and saying, I got to refocus, I got to stay focused, and not given so much attention and time to the distractors. And trust me, there's a lot of it out there. And so I can focus in on students and do what I can to support students, especially when the brilliant minds that are going to change this world are our students. And so yeah, I'm learning more and more every day because of people like Edith.
Yay. Like this quote from the book, this Janicet Gutierrez, "My existence is resistance." I love this. So I wanted to make sure I shared it, whether it fits into this conversation or not. But then Paola says at the end of the chapter, so I'm glad, Edith, that like you said what you said. These trans women may have never had light to guide their journeys, but that has transformed them into an unstoppable shining light that can illuminate almost everything that stands in their way. And then obviously they're doing it for other people that are coming up behind them, right? So it's like you're shining the light, but you're also leading the way. You're forging that path. And I know these are like grand thoughts that we have. Sometimes these words, they have meaning. They mean something. And when we say you are that light, you're the only one that can see in front of you, and the people behind you are trusting that decisions are being made that are going to impact them positively, and that's why they keep going. That's the hope, right?
Yeah, I definitely also resonate with that quote. It's one of my favorite ones. Like when I'm feeling under the weather, I remember that I'm like, my existence is my resistance. Because
Yeah.
I just think about, conquest. They killed 90% of my people. 90%. Only 10 survived, and I'm part of that 10%. And in 2020, we became again the majority after all the genocide and just everything that we underwent through the pandemics. 1910, I believe that was the last pandemic around the time, and then another pandemic, and we're still afloat. So when I feel under the weather, I remember that, and I'm like, hey, my existence is my resistance. So I'm like, I have something to hold on to, because sometimes, yeah, it gets hard, and you don't know like how to navigate. It's tough, but yeah, as long as you know that, as long as you exist, like it's your resistance. Because sometimes, yeah, you want to give out, you want to give in, you want to give in to everything that people are saying about you, or who they think you are, or especially when you're being criminalized, as these women are, and they're being told that this is who they are, and that's it. But you have to hang on to your truth. I think that's one thing that quote reminds me of: hanging on to my truth, knowing who I am, and it empowers me. So thank you for sharing that quote from the book.
It's one of my favorites. You got a message here from LinkedIn. You're making your ancestors so proud, and those that will come after you as well. Thank you, Jody, for that. Everybody's so proud of you, Edith. This is what we do, right? We gotta elevate. We gotta elevate our students. We gotta help them out. Okay, we're reaching the end of the hour. Do either of you have any last parting? I mean, I know we've said a lot of like really amazing things, and people can obviously watch this recording again before I close out the evening.
I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to let me speak about this topic, and also my experiences and the work that I'm doing here locally. And yeah, I just want to say that whatever you can do to support, because there's a lot of causes that you can get involved with. It doesn't necessarily have to be immigration. There's taking care of the planet, like the earth. Just yesterday, I was watching a documentary about buffaloes and the bisons, and how they are, um, once upon a time, from what I learned yesterday, they used to roam, yeah, all the Americas, and it was just amazing at how like vast they were, and like in 50 years, it went from like 83 million of them to 1 million. And it was just like, wow, just like killing them. And, but they're still here, and their DNA hasn't changed. So it gives me hope that, like just even advocating, like, for example, my son, he loves bisons. He says that that's his spirit animal. He's a bison. So I went to ceremony, and I brought him back and then we started looking into it. And, it's just because he wants to advocate for bisons. I'm like, okay, you do that, So I think as long as you find your cause and what suits you, and ultimately your light, where can you be that light? So yeah, but thank you again for having me, and for talking about this topic, and bringing awareness to it. I really appreciate being
Thank
here and
you.
having a space to talk about this. So thank you again.
I love having you. You just know now you're on my list, so I'm gonna be reaching out to have you come on and have these conversations. We've got 12 weeks to go, so we're definitely gonna be reaching out to you again. And if you want to, like we were talking about your friend before the broadcast, bring more people on as well. It's great to have a student, be able to have a student conversation about it. Okay, let me see here. All right, so just a reminder, I should have done this at the beginning. I forgot. A reminder to everyone that March is Women's History Month. So go find documentaries, watch TV shows, read books, look at articles, whatever. Let's be reminded of, historically what this means. What does it mean to you? What does it mean here in the US, at work, in your family? Talk about it, embrace it, support it. And then Reina Grande's book comes out this week. It's called The Ballad of Love and Glory. It's lovely. It's amazing. It's beautiful. Reina Grande is incredible. She's a great author. Edith, if you want to read some of her stuff, I have books.
Yeah,
and then,
I know it.
Do you? Do you know Reina?
I actually got to the Kern County Library did basically they did like a 1 month like author highlighting an author, and they did Reina Grande in collaboration with BC and CSGP. Sorry for the background noise. But we got to kick it off, and the theme was the rose that grew from concrete, because it was. Yeah, give me a second. Because it was talking about undocumented folks, but also those that are documented but have, basically their parents are undocumented. So, so we came up with the title, The Girls That Grew from Concrete, and I had the privilege to kick it off. Like it was last month, like 2 months ago. But yeah, and I got to dive into some of her work, and I definitely resonate with who she is as an author, and I look forward to following her steps and writing my own book.
Yay!
So yeah, it's great.
Yay! I'm sure she'll come back. We're she's one of my favorite people. So I wanted to highlight her because I know that book is coming out this week. And then I do have a short video, but maybe I'm just going to put this out there. Julissa Arce also, they're both at a Tucson festival. Something they were on a panel, I think, together. You Sound Like a White Girl is also a new book that's coming out that Julissa wrote. And the video I wanted to show is on Instagram, and it's about immigration. So I thought that it was, made a lot of sense to put it into this conversation, but we're already past the hour. So I'll just say, go find Julissa Arce. I can't wait to read this book. I don't have it yet, but I'm looking forward to it. And she's going to be starting her tour soon for this book. So wanted to highlight her. And then, I will share this because we're talking about it. Jody says her son wears a buffalo medallion every day. That's funny. It's out there. All right.
Yeah, I'm like, I just wanted to say something to Jody. So apparently I was doing some of the reading today because, yeah, it was just really like calling me to read up on the buffalo, right, and the bison. And apparently it takes care of the children. It has a really deep connection with children. So I found that very interesting for the fact that my son feels called to the bison. And just wanted to share that since you said about your son also. So yeah, might want to check it out or look into it.
That's interesting. I love we have all these connections with other living beings on this planet. And when you open yourself up to that and pay attention to it, man, it's like a beautiful thing. I love it. But I love that both of you just happen to be in the same space at the same time. Awesome.
Definitely.
I am going to highlight the Edith real quick. I'm going to share this page because I found, since you're here, let's share this just real quick. I just wanted to share all of the articles that she has written. Please go find her, Edith Mata. You can do a search on authors for Kern Solus. So here we go. I just wanted to put that out there. Like I said, we're like celebrating everybody whenever we get a chance. So there.
Thank you. Go. I think right there you will find a lot of articles of definitely like immigration and just highlighting the stories that are never told by like the big news media, or that they really bring justice to it.
Mommy, can you give me?
So here's Ramon's bison.
Oh,
nice. Beautiful.
No, you can't really tell. It's kind of blurry, but you want to say hi? Yeah. Okay, there's Ramon.
Hi.
Hi.
We're talking about your bison.
Mommy, Can you press the money?
We're gonna close out. We're gonna close this so you can go back to do. I gotta go pick up my kid too, so we're gonna take care of this. Thank you so much for joining us, Edith, Richard. Thank you for joining us. Great conversation. Keep reading the book. We will have you back in the next 12 weeks for sure. So make sure that if you need a copy, let us know because we have some donations for that. Richard, were you gonna say something?
No, I'm just going to
No.
thank Edith. Edith, thank you so much for being here. It was wonderful.
Thank you. It's such a privilege, and I'm very happy to be able to highlight the stories of our folks. And I hope that we can carry this work forward and support our communities with an open mind and an open heart, and just we can prevail.
Thank you. All right, we'll see you next time. This is the end of the live stream. We'll see everybody next week. Chapter 3 is called American. See you then.